Right guys, finishing up with the sanding process, and then we're going to prime this piece again. So I'm just going to leave the video rolling while I do the priming process. I've given all the colour a light rub down, everything's good and ready to go. I'm just going to quickly run my hand over it. As a general rule of thumb, what I tell my trainees is if you can feel it, you can see it. So what you want to do before you start sanding painting any surface is just lightly run your hand over the surface that you're going to be painting and make sure that there's no visible, or sorry, what would be the word for feeling? I don't know, visceral. Like that you can't feel any roughness. If you can feel it, then you can see it. The minute you put paint over that, it's going to show up dramatically. So make sure everything's nice and smooth. This is. Also, before you want to paint the surface, you also want to give it a nice big dust down. You can't get paint to adhere to a surface if there is dust in between the paint and the surface being painted. So like I said, this piece is now ready to be primed again. I'm going to quickly pause the video, go mix the paint, come back, and I'll explain the process in priming the piece as I go. See you soon. Okay, so the paint has been mixed. I've thinned this down quite a bit. For two reasons. One, I had hardly any of it left and I didn't want to change the depth of the colour for the primer. The top coat that's going on this, or the actual paint colour of it, is going to be matched to Farrow and Ball Hague Blue, so it's very, very dark navy. So I did tint the primer. I only had white primer and I did tint it to bring it up to this grey colour, so I don't want to change that. So I've just thinned it down. The good news is this is it's been primed anyway, it's been filled, everything's been rubbed down, everything feels really lovely and smooth. So this second coat should take really easily, really quickly, and we shouldn't require too much paint, I should imagine. So I'm just going to go ahead and start doing it, and I'll just explain what I'm doing as I go along. What I'll do is I'll go and actually turn the music down. I do like listening to music when I'm painting, but I get that it's not ideal for tutorials. So, plus there might be some copyright involved, I'll need to look into that. Basically what I'm doing here is there's a wee ridge. Oh, the camera's too low at the moment. There's a wee ridge along the top. And if I just move the camera up a bit, you'll be able to see that. Just in here, there's a wee ridge. So I'm just pushing the tips of the bristles into the wee ridge, and then very lightly, using my wrist, just flicking the brush down. While I'm doing that, I'm making sure that I get into these wee grooves here, also with the tips of the brush. Now, see if the paint isn't flowing, just give the brush a little wiggle. What that does is it pushes paint down to the tips of the bristles. Now, because we've got the brush up the way, you'll notice that there's quite a lot of paint that's gathered round about the brush here. We don't want that to keep dripping down there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this paint to just lay on another wee bit of the piece. However, I'm going to switch to using the roller just to get a nice dimpled finish on it that looks like cabinet paint. So I'm going to switch to the bottom, do the same thing, use my wee painter's wiggle, and just push that paint that was all over the bristles that you saw, that I showed you, down to the tips of the bristles to get it flowing out of that section. Now, there's a wee lip at the bottom there, so what I'm going to do, sillily, I've painted the top there, so I'm just going to put my finger on this wee ridge here, slightly lift it, I'll get a wee dip. I need the paint to be flowing here, and I'm just going to run that along the bottom just to make sure that I get into that wee gap there. There's also this wee gap here. I'm just going to angle the brush slightly one direction and then angle it in the other just to fill that wee bit in, and then using the brush on the side, very, very lightly, just brushing the tips up there. The only other bit that's to get cut in actually is around this wee label here. I do have a GoPro and a baseball cap that I'm going to start using to give you guys close-ups on what I'm doing, so that you can actually see in detail down here when I'm doing it. But for now, I'm sorry, I'm limited to the tripod. However, I will move it down a bit, slightly angle the phone a bit better, so you can watch this, the rolling process and the laying off. So we've cut the sections that the roller would struggle to get into. We're now going to lay the roller on, and what we're going to do is we're going to lay it on horizontally. Just lay the paint on horizontally. Don't have the roller too loaded. What you do is you dip and then you roll in this section. Sorry, can't see the tray. So you dip in the well and then you roll it out on this section here. These wee raised bits that are in this section here help to push the paint into the roller. Stops it being drippy and loads it up nicely. So dip it in there and then apply a wee bit of pressure when you're rolling it off on this section here. Again, we're going to go in horizontally. We're going to start a wee bit away from where we finished off. This is a general rule of thumb in painting walls and stuff as well. Anything, any sort of surface with paint, what you want to do is wherever you left off, you want to start your new section of paint just slightly away from that, so that you don't create an overlap where there's a section getting double painted almost. So all this paint that's loaded into this roller just now, just lay it down just slightly above where you left off before, and then work the paint down into that section, and it helps to keep everything nice and even and spread out. So we'll do that. We'll make sure that we get into these wee tack holes that we filled with the white filler, and then load it up again. Do the same thing again, starting away a wee bit from where we left off, working the paint down. I'll just slightly angle the roller there to get into these wee side sections. There's a particular sound that you listen for in painting as well, but I'll explain more about that as we go along. In fact, I'll probably explain more about that in the actual decorating tutorials. It'll make more sense then than what it does here in the furniture. So, because we've laid all that paint on, I'm just going to do that wee edge there with the roller now. We're going to switch to laying it off, and we're going to lay it off vertically because these panels run vertically. So all the laying off is we're not putting any more paint on the roller. We're just going back and we're very, very lightly just running the roller over the top of the paint that we've already laid on. Pressure here is almost nil. Keep it to a minimum. Really all we're doing is, I think in a previous video, if you remember the video on me explaining how to lay on and lay off paint using a brush on a piece of furniture, the analogy that I like to use is, imagine that you've just buttered a slice of toast and you've put the butter on too thick in some areas. Well, what we're doing here is essentially spreading the butter out, taking it from the areas where it's too thick and spreading it out to the areas where it's too thin to ensure even coverage everywhere. So that's one side of it done. I'm going to pause the video, paint the rest of it, and we'll come back at the end and I'll show you the finished primed piece. Okay, thanks for watching. Paint the back section now. Actually, I forgot to show you on the other side, but see when you're doing your cut-ins, you also want to run the brush up the inside of these wee grooves there just to make sure that they're covered. They did cover them pretty well with the first coat and they didn't get any licks of filler. However, still good practice to make sure, just in case there's any wee sections that we missed in the first coat. Again, using the tips of the bristles, just go along the edge there and make sure that you get under that wee lip also. Down this edge here, I'm slightly angling the brush to make sure that I'm pushing the bristles in there. If you can, I'll just slow down the motion so that you can see that. And again, across the bottom, to make sure that we get into that wee gap down there as well. There we go. Oh, there we go, down the inside section. So Now that that's all filled in, again we can switch to using the roller, using the same technique as before, laying on horizontally. And I've finished this wee back up there, but because I touched it with the roller there, I'm just going to go back and lay it off again so it doesn't have a wee flash mark where I touched that with the roller there. That's what happens when you try and do it too fast and get ahead of yourself. If you are pretty new to this, then just slow down, take your time, paint it in sections, one section at a time, finish that section before you move on. And I'm liking the finish that this primer has. I'm liking the way that it's lying down. It's pretty nice. There we go. Dry off the roller a wee bit. I thought I had a wee bit too much paint on there, so I'm just going to go back and again do the lay off, and we do the lay off vertically in line with the panels. And again, you're not applying more paint, all you're doing is spreading out the surface of the paint that you've already applied, making sure that it's evenly coated and nice and smooth. Yeah, there we go. Again, I'm just going to pause the video, bring it round to the front, and then I'll show you a wee bit of how to paint the inside section, this front section here, which goes in that corner. Okay, so we're going to paint this inside section here, and what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to start from the top and work our way down, and that's the general rule of thumb in all painting. You always want to sort of start at the top, work your way down, that way if any drips come from the top we can catch them and lay them out as we go down. Because this is a triangle, now I can't really show you in there at the top, but I will show you in detail what I'm doing down here when we come to this section. It's basically mirrored, it's the exact same. So what I'm going to have to do is just slightly cut in all the wee corners with the brush. In here there is a light fitting, which I'm also going to cut round. And what I'm doing is saving myself some time. I'm cutting round the top, and I'm also just going to cut onto the side sections as well, because it's not going to be long before I'm coming down to them too. And because that's a wee lip, that's just getting painted in full. I'm just using a sort of dabbing motion to get it on there. It's already been painted. It's had a rub down between coats. Always, always, always when you're painting any sort of furniture piece, walls, doors as well, between coats you want to give it a nice wee light scratch with your sandpaper, just to take off any wee bits of dust or stew or hairs or anything that might have come out of the tools in the first coat. These harden into your paint surface, and although they're tiny and they're minor, when you're doing a piece of furniture and you want it to look professional, the last thing you want is little, what we call nips all over it, because what happens is when the furniture goes into some natural light, you'll be able to see those wee nibs through the top coat. So I'm just lightly cutting in around the light fitting here. Like I previously mentioned, I do plan on changing that to a cool white light bulb, because it's currently warm yellow, which doesn't or won't suit this piece at all, because there is silver in the top paper, the decoupage, which will be going on the top of this. So I don't think it will match very well. I think it will be a bit clashy. So I'll be changing the bulb. Okay, we're ready to come down the sections now. But what we're going to do first, and I hope you can see what I'm doing here, is the exact same thing we did at the top. I'm just going to cut into the corners. Because the roller won't. This is a medium pile. I think this is chinella, not chinella, what's this stuff called? It'll come microfiber. It's a microfiber roller, and it's a medium pile, so it won't get into those little corners there. So I just need to do the brush. There's a little line here that's like a sort of recess, so we want to fill in that with the tips of the bristles also. And then we want to go to filling in these recesses up and down in these sections. And what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, I'm going to do it a section at a time. You remember I mentioned that it's best when painting furniture to paint it in sections. I'm not going to bother doing the horizontal and then vertical lay off in here. I'm just going to go straight to laying it on vertically and laying it off vertically. This is a bit of a struggle of a workspace. You'll notice there that when I was going in that direction with the roller, I had this metal arm pointed in the direction that I was painting. That's what you want to do with a roller cage if you're using it on the wall as well. Same rules apply. If this section here, you want to kind of use it as a directional arrow to show you the direction you're going in. However, when you come to a corner, what you don't want is this metal arm gouging the new surface, the new wall or whatever. So when you come to a corner, just flip it round and just use the soft end just to fill in that wee corner, just to minimise the risk of that happening. So that's one section painted. What I'm now going to do is go back in very gently, just lay it off. I'll just be laying off these sections as I go. There we go. Now there is a wee inside section here that also needs painted, so cut that in while I was doing the brush. I'm just going to fill that in just now, so I'll need to go in here, figure out what's the best direction to do this in, and it's this way. I think I'll probably go in side to side here yet. Sometimes you have to improvise. And again, I'll just flip the roller so that the metal arm doesn't gouge the top. I'll bring the roller out the way to fill in this wee side section. It's highly unlikely that anybody's going to look in there and see in there, but you want to keep it professional, you want to do it right. Just in case, I don't know, I'm pernickety that way. Most painters are pernickety, we want to do things right. So now I'm going to fill in these sections. Sorry, before I get ahead of myself, I'm just going to go and fill in the recesses. And this bit here, not really wide enough to take the roller, so I'm just going to fill that in with a brush. And what I'm going to do is just lightly brush on the paint, take off most of the excess off the brush, and then go back with the very tips of the bristles using a very light wrist motion. No pressure at all, just very, very lightly draw that brush down that section just to take off any excess paint. And remember the butter analogy, we're just spreading the paint over the surface a wee bit more evenly. There we go. Back with the brush, fill in the rest of these recesses again, including the corner one, and this wee corner one in here, and that wee recess. Again, I think what I'll do with this one is I'll start in here, go in with the roller. You'll see that I have to get in a kind of front position to see what I'm doing. Sometimes painters need to do that. It helps if you're a gymnast. I'm not a gymnast, but sometimes you feel like you must, like you have to be, get into certain areas. Yoga helps. Well, say that, I do yoga, and I do find that yoga helps being a painter. It helps you to position yourself correctly using the breath to actually hold yourself in a position that might be somewhat dodgy. Right, nearly there. Piece is drinking the primer up nicely. Because I scratched the surface. And again, back with the roller to just very lightly lay off. Now, I'm a perfectionist, and I can notice that when I was rolling in there, what I've did is I've created a very slight lip of paint down there with the edge of the roller, which I don't like at all. So what I'm going to do is, because the area is so small, just go back in with the brush again with no paint on it, and just very lightly clear that section off again. As long as the paint's still wet, you can lay off more than once. However, once that paint starts to set up, don't go back and try to lay off any paint surface, because what it'll do is it'll just drag off any paint that you put on previously and leave you with baldy patches showing through. Because what paint does is paint, when you apply paint, it'll soften the paint that's underneath. Okay, and it kind of goes the same with when you're varnishing your nails, ladies. You'll know yourself if you apply a second coat too quickly before the first coat's like cured fully. It'll kind of soften the nail varnish that you've already put on and pull that coat off. Well, the same rules apply with paint, so don't rush it, don't get ahead of yourself, let the first coat dry fully, and don't try and lay off if the paint has set up and dried. Now I just touched that wee bit with my hand, I'm just going to go back in there and roll it off. So having a wee look, a wee check, is it even? Maybe lay that wee bit off again. I think I'll give the roof another lay off. You do become a bit of a perfectionist when you're a painter. You develop what I call a painter's eye for things, which just means that you have a healthy, or sorry, it can be quite unhealthy, habit of spotting and picking up flaws, and that's not just in pieces of furniture. Painters, if you're watching, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't go anywhere without spotting the flaws in things, in particular the decorating work. So the inside of that section done. I'm going to move down and do the wee underneath section. Now this one does require a bit of gymnastics. I actually have to get down on my back upside down to do it. So probably some people will say, why don't you just wait till the top's dry and turn the piece upside down? I'm not really want to scratch any of the top, and the underneath isn't getting painted anyway, so yeah, I'll just stick to doing my gymnastics. It works for me. One of the downsides of doing this is just trying to reach out to the painting, so I'm just going to turn that around a wee bit. Kick the door shut there. Again, do the top first. And again, nobody's likely to look under here, but you want to get into the habit of just doing things right. Don't cut corners. If you get into the habit of cutting corners, you'll probably continue cutting corners. And cutting corners and decorating can be drastic. It can actually cost you not just time, but money as well. And one of my old tradesmen said to me, and I'll probably share quite a lot of wee quirky things that tradesmen have said to me over the years, but one of them said, whenever you're tempted to cut a corner, don't. And I think that's pretty sound advice. It's served me well, and what I have noticed is on the rare occasions where I have been tempted to cut a corner, that advice has come back to haunt me. So yeah, whenever you're tempted to cut a corner, don't. So yeah, I'm just going to fill in all those wee grooves. Same as you saw me doing at the top, including in the corners. Where the brush, sorry, where the roller wouldn't normally be able to get. I'm going to switch to painting on the top. Again, flipping the roller where necessary so it doesn't gouge into the sides. But generally using that wee metal arm as your directional arm, pointing in the direction that you're going. Don't worry about that knotting, that's just this section banging off here. So it hasn't upset any of the paint. Right, load up again, and I'm going to do the wee inside corner first. Flip the roller. What is it, son? You're getting anxious. What time is it? Nearly time to go and get Morgan. And I haven't even put my watch on, so I better switch it on. I'm pretty sure it's getting close to that time. The dog isn't mine, he's my son's. dog sitting just now. So I'm not used to actually having a wee dog running about. But yeah, he's quite good company when my daughter's at school, when I'm off work. I'm here myself, so I quite like having him around. Where is it, son? Daniel. It's nearly time. You know, don't you? I'm giving me a wee pillow to lie on. Lovely. Thank you. Right, so top's done, sides are done. We're going to do the bottom. Before I do the bottom, however, I don't know if you can see this wee lip round and round there, and although I've not done the sides yet, come on, you're going to have to move now, darling. Move. Go lie down. Go lie down. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to paint round this wee lip first, because when I'm doing the lay off here, it's going to come out to this section, so it would make life a lot easier if we just apply the paint to this wee section first. So dipping the brush, I'm going to just slightly tip the piece and just lightly using the tips. That side first, and then that side, and then just run that brush along the front. There we go. I'm going to use the tips to just get in here. Now the rest of the sides I did while I was cutting in, the rest of the bottom edge I did while I was cutting in the sides. So that doesn't done just these wee edges here, and again I'll take it up on that wee bit there and also onto here, because we're going to take in this wee section now, but we just need to get into the corners because that's where the roller won't be able to go. So you'll probably be able to see here better now what I was doing on the top, on the ceiling. So the roller can be taken right up to the cut edge, the cut lines which were made with a brush. If any wee bits come out of the roller, and that looks like a bit from yesterday actually. Must have missed that when I was giving it a wee scratch. To be fair, I didn't pay much attention to this wee section down here for obvious reasons. It's not really going to be getting looked at in any great detail. Wee slight awkward angle in there again. I'm just pushing that roller almost right to the edge, but not quite. Up these sides. And then along this wee top bit, we're just going to lay off this wee section again, just in case the roller's created a wee lip of paint, which it sometimes does. And then we're going to do these sections and the sides. So before we do that, any cutting in that's necessary, you'll see that this has got grooves, so we have to apply with it using the brush first, just to make sure that the paint bristles get in all those wee grooves and fill them in with paint. We will lay off the top surface with the roller, just so that the texture of that surface is in line with the texture of the rest of the piece, so that this isn't brush marks where the rest of it's rollers. So it will get laid off with the roller, the surface of it, but the roller won't reach into these grooves, so we need to cut into those first also. And I'm just going to move the tripod up again so you can see. But there's also this lip under here, which we're also going to take in at this point. So you'll see that how working in sections, painting a piece, why we have to do it, and why it's helpful. Again, just painting that wee section in there. I'll do this wee corner again. I'm just not happy with that. And we'll just, now you'll see that, that's good, that's nice and close. Lie the tips in, right in the corner, push them into the corner, and then drag the brush down down to the bottom, same thing again, push them into the edge and then drag the brush up, and keep the brush leg sort of slightly flat this time. You want a lot of that bristle surface to be on that surface there, because all your paint's gathered there, remember? So you want to use that paint to sort of fill in the area. There we go. Another dip, and we'll fill in this section. Now you'll notice that I'm starting in the middle and then pulling it out to either edge, because I don't want the paint to come off at this edge here and gather and drip. Again, got into the wee edges there and down to the bottom. Do the same. And we're all ready for the roller now. Hold it up. And we're just going to go straight on vertically in these sections here. You'll see more what I'm doing at this side. You probably won't see it at this side, but now I'm just filling in the entire middle section. The brush has cut in the edges, and then once you've filled it in, back with a very light lay off. Again, remember I said we're going to lay off this section here using the roller, so we're just going to bring the dry roller lightly down the section, and that will change the texture of that paint that's been laid down there from brush marks to roller marks. Same on the other side. I'm going to load up the roller and you'll be able to see better what I'm doing on that side. Yeah, because you can see a bit of that surface. So, moving around. Apologies for the outside noise, guys. I don't have any control over that. Stay in a centralised area. And there's quite a lot of comings and goings, so yeah, I'll just move that down slightly. So we're filling in this section here. Remember, we've cut the top of the brush, so fill it in first, lay the paint down, make sure the whole surface is covered. You can see where the paint's lying down, you can see it is pretty obvious. Sorry, I forgot something here. I'm just going to have to do it before I forget. There is a wee bead line that, running down here that I managed to catch on the other side, however I've forgotten on this side, so I'll just grab that first and then go back and again just change the texture of that surface from a brush mark to a roller mark. Swing the roller around the front and do the same with this front section that we filled in with the brush. I'm just going to lightly run the roller over the edge here. Do the same, and that's that entire piece almost painted. The only thing we've got left to do now is the top. Sorry, there's a wee tiny bit of white in there that I must have missed, so I'm just going to lightly fill that in. Yeah, so the only section left to do now is the top. Just move this up a bit. There we go. And then there's the top. So try and bring it in closer. And then I'm going to just zoom the camera around the entire piece. So this wire's been a bit of a nuisance and an annoyance, but I haven't been able to cut it off so far. So far all I've been doing is just sort of moving it out of the way. No cutting here with the brush at all. The only thing I have to do is try and avoid that cable. You don't want to hit the cable all with paint, because even though there's a top going on it, it's still quite unprofessional to have it all covered in grey paint. So moving the cable out of the way, I'm going to just keep going in one direction, lay the paint on gently. I hope you can see the texture of that primer, it's lovely. Because there is filler, and quite a lot of filler on this surface, I'm going to keep loading the roller and make sure there's enough paint, because that filler is very porous. It will drink a lot of the primer in. There is a good chance, because it's been filled quite a bit, that it will need another wee hit primer, because the filler has sometimes a tendency to flash. However, as I mentioned previously, this filler is really good and I haven't really seen a problem with that up until now. My only concern is, remember I said at the start of the video, I did water this primer down quite a bit to get it to spread, so I have a feeling that I'm going to have to go and hit this again with more primer once it's dry. So yeah, I think that's it. Quick light layoff. You'll notice with the layoff I'm going in with the, I have the roller set up so that I'm following the metal arm, the direction of the metal arm. I think I just touched that. I'll quickly get a cloth and clean that off once we're done. Make sure I don't miss any. See, when you're doing a layoff, it is the lightest, the gentlest emotions. You don't want to overdo it, you don't want to keep going over it, laying it off, laying it off, laying it off. Because like I said, if your paint starts to set up and dry on you and you lay it off too much, it will pull off the previous coat of paint. So, and it will drag. Right, I'm going to show you around about the piece. Still drying, as you can see. That's its second coat of primer. You can see the surface there, texture of the surface. This is its brother piece, which is just about to get rubbed down, and another coat of primer as well. And this is the paper that will be going on the top of both pieces. They will be getting sold as a pair. I'll be reluctant to separate them. They were initially a cabinet. This one was on top of that. However, I thought it was a bit dated and old-fashioned. That's kind of out. So this way, there are two corner cabinets. One could be sat in one corner of the room. One could be sat in the other. It was my intention to put a light fitting in here and this one as well. However, I'm still debating that, because there's also that once you start putting light fittings in things, there's electrical regulations and stuff to adhere to, so I need to have a wee look into that. But yep, just thought I'd briefly mention that, show you what the plan is for these pieces. There will be further videos posted in relation to these two pieces, obviously one being the top coat being applied, the Hague Blue, so stay tuned for that. And for now, bye for me, bye for Teaser. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you on other videos. So it's Pamela at Flipped It. Thanks for your time. Bye.